And so it is tonight. We do welcome back our friend and wonderful contributor to the organization, Alan Tutt. And he's recording the videos that are on our YouTube channel for the Coptic Fellowship. So others can look back on all the presenters that grace the presence of these Sunday nights. And he's the author of 9 books, countless audio programs, Choose to Believe, Harmonic Prayer, wonderful videos that he's presenting and transforming his life and following his dream of helping others in his own unique way, virtually and in person as well, when we have that opportunity to permit that. He's lost everything earlier in his life. In previous Sunday evening experiences, he's opened up wholeheartedly and shared that with us with humility, and we're thankful for that. And he transformed his visions with just one book. He might touch on that again tonight, and really revamped his life and tapped into his universal divine essence and directing the divine power to turn his life around. And he truly did, and he continues to do so. And as you look back on all his things that he's done for the organization, I just want to kind of divert from the normal introduction for him. He's really assisting transforming this organization one small step at a time, but it could be a huge leap. And we wait with anticipation for what he's providing the organization with his talent, his wisdom, his gifts to take a look at our Coptic Center website and the organization and present Master Hamid-based teachings in a very unique way. And he's focusing on what he's learned through the self-discovery class and teaching WSO 1 year in the program, and taking his wisdom of how he's changed his life. And it's a good topic tonight. He touches on how to control the uncontrollable.
Okay, so the title for tonight's presentation, How to Control the Uncontrollable. And there are many different examples of this idea beyond what I originally thought of when I chose the title. In fact, Hamid Bey, one of the main things that he's known for is to be able to control his metabolism, his heart rate, his breathing, his blood pressure, his heart rate, all of these things that at one time people thought were completely uncontrollable. A lot of people think that it's impossible to control your thoughts or your feelings. These are also things that, even though they may seem to be uncontrollable, we can actually learn to control them. The presentation tonight started off about 2 months ago. I released a new package on my website. I sold a bunch of copies to the people on my mailing list. And one of the students that bought into that new package had asked me a question had asked me to describe in more detail what I went through internally when I did certain things like controlling the weather. This is one of the stories that I tell every so often about how there are times when, for instance, if it's raining and I don't want it to rain, I will focus my mind, and it has happened on quite a number of occasions that the rain stops within a few minutes. There have been times when we have an outdoor event and I set an intention for a particular type of weather, and that's exactly what we get, whether it's for an outdoor wedding that I'm photographing or it's a picnic that we're having as a group, either with the Coptic Center or with family. And I will talk about not last night, but the night before, when the drum circle and the fire ceremony were supposed to happen but got rained out. I will talk about that because it's also important to know when things break down and when the principles seem to not work, because that gives us extra information on what is required to make things work the way you want them to work. So a couple of months ago, I got asked this question: what specifically do I do when I am influencing the weather? And so I created this outline. I sat down with the camera right here in my office, didn't have any time constraint whatsoever. So I just simply sat here, talked to the camera, and an hour later, I had completed the presentation. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole hour presentation here. I'm simplifying it. I've had a chance to refine it down a little bit, so you get the distilled version of it. But I believe everyone here has heard the stories about controlling the weather. It started off, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit more about those stories, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on what I was actually feeling at the time, what I was actually thinking at the time, and what thought process led me to take certain actions or to do certain things. Because over time, I have learned more and more and more about the manifesting process. And yet it was this experience with some connection with weather that seemed to click into place more so for me than pretty much anything else. So this was the first experience that I had that worked. And it was the experience that I kept going back to learn even more about how to manifest in other areas of life. And even though we're talking about weather, as I mentioned earlier, this really impacts any situation you want it to impact, whether it's controlling your thoughts, whether it's controlling your emotions, whether it's controlling pretty much anything you think is outside of your physical control. There have been times when I have seen this process work to change the behavior of another person. And that's not something that I do very often. It's only happened a couple of times, but I have seen it work for that. So if there's something happening in the government or in the news media or something else that you think shouldn't be happening that way, what we're talking about tonight, you can use to help influence that situation, even though you're not physically or any other way directly involved with that situation. So, okay. Having introduced everything, let's kind of get into the meat of this. As many of you know, the first experience that I had in this whole weather control situation was as a child. I was riding in the backseat of a car. My parents were going to visit my grandmother. It was raining. I really didn't like the rain. I liked seeing sunny blue skies. And so I was playing this game. And this game inside my mind, as I'm riding in the backseat of my car, I'm imagining this giant clear plastic dome over the area that we're driving through. And I'm imagining the rain is hitting that dome and then draining off to the sides. It's this rounded dome, and the rain hits it, goes away. The rain's going away, the rain's going away, kind of like Moses in the Red Sea. We're parting the water of the rain. And for some odd reason, most likely coincidence, I will admit that it was most likely coincidence, within a few minutes, the rain stopped. And my thought was, wow, that actually worked. Now, there are a few things about that experience that may have helped it work. For one, I was playing a game. I wasn't trying to force something. I wasn't trying to fight against something. I didn't feel a sense of resistance that I was pushing against. That playtime, that openness to experience, that is an aspect that can help the process. I had a very clear, focused vision of what I was going for. It may not have had anything to do with reality. I mean, there was no plastic dome actually forming in the sky above me, but that image was able to communicate, that image, that symbol, was communicated to my deeper mind, which is in contact with the divine mind. And that is how we are able to manifest different things, because the images and thoughts inside our mind get communicated to the divine mind through one process or another. And so because I had very clear focus, or as Linda was talking about, my mind was concentrated on the idea that I wanted to manifest. That was another key element that may have worked there. Now, be that as it may, the next time that I really remember trying to influence weather, I was walking along the sidewalks. I had been hitchhiking out. I got dropped off in Kansas City, actually, and it was raining at the time. I'm walking along trying to find a dry place to get out of the rain. And I remembered that time back as a kid. It's like that actually worked back then. I wonder if it will work again. And that I wonder if it will work again, that indicates that my mind was open to the possibility. I didn't necessarily believe that it would work 100%. So I didn't need to have 100% belief that it would work. I just needed enough belief to be open to the possibility. That's another key point that we need to keep in mind. And so I recognized that I couldn't focus my mind and walk at the same time. So I stopped where I was. And again, I imagined a giant plastic dome over the area where I was, and the rain was hitting that and moving along. And as I'm visualizing that, I noticed that my breathing was a lot more measured than it normally is. I was breathing in and thinking about pulling in power from the area around me. And I was very focused, breathing out as I'm visualizing this beam of energy from my chest going up into the sky to form as that giant plastic dome. I was visualizing a process. And again, the process doesn't have to match with reality. It was a symbol. I was visualizing a symbolic process of pulling in energy and pushing that energy into a very focused beam to create that giant plastic dome to push the rain away. Now, it did happen that within about maybe 10 or 15 minutes, it was a little bit longer. It took a little bit longer because I wasn't really playing as much of a game at that point. I was a little bit more concerned, if you want to put it that way, of getting a successful result. I was a little bit more invested in that successful result, so it did take a little bit longer. And so that was the process that I used at that time. And one thing I will point out is that at that particular time, I saw myself as simply a physical human being contained within the space within my skin. I did not at that time think of myself as a divine being. I did not think of myself as a spiritual being without bounds of space or time. I have noticed over time that I see myself differently now, and this difference, this visualization of myself, this perception of myself as a being that goes beyond the skin, that goes beyond the physical space around me, this concept of myself has helped manifesting work a lot better than it did back then. Back then, I thought of myself as this physical being, and there's something going on with the electrical impulses within my brain radiating out as electrical waves, as radio waves to influence things. That's one reason why any manifesting attempt that I made back then did take a little bit longer than it does now. So essentially, that second time, I'm visualizing this plastic dome, visualizing energy going out to create the plastic dome. It did happen to work. So the first time was probably pure coincidence. The second time, I did have at least a little bit of belief that it could work. And the fact that it did work grew that belief even more. And so the more and more we have successful outcomes, the more we naturally believe in getting successful results. And so this belief in getting successful results, this is another very major aspect of the whole manifesting process. The more we can believe that the thing that we're doing is going to get the results we're looking for, the better it works. Okay, so let me talk about Friday right now. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. So there are times when I do try to focus on getting a particular outcome and it doesn't work. And I will describe why it didn't work this particular time. So this last week, as Mike mentioned, I'm doing some work with the Coptic website again. I'm actually taking the Egypt's Master Voice course, that 3-ring binder, and digitizing that so that it can be sold directly on the website. That's the project that I've been working on this last week. I've been really focused on getting that project done, getting that project done. I haven't even been paying any attention to what the weather's been doing. And then I got to a point where I'm real close to having it done. And then I realized that, okay, it's already Friday. They want to have that outdoor event that night. It was already cloudy. It was supposed to be raining throughout the day. So mistake number one, I waited till the last minute. If I had focused on it the week before, it probably would have worked. So mistake number one was waiting till the last minute. But as the previous two stories that I just shared with you indicated, even in the middle of rain, if you can focus your mind and concentrate on that idea with enough clarity, you can get results within a few minutes. So there were some other things that went on that particular day that I also felt like I had to focus on. So the conditions that caused that not to work, first of all, I waited till the last minute. Second of all, I had been focusing on this other project so much that I felt mentally drained at that point. I was feeling tired. And I have noticed that the more energetic I feel, so there is a component of your physical health that is involved here. The energy from your physical body feeds your mind. At least that's the theory that I'm working with at this point. It may not necessarily be that. It may just simply be a belief that I have that interferes with my own results from time to time. That may be just a personal belief. But I waited till last minute. I was feeling tired. I didn't feel like I could really focus on that as well as I could. And I did have some other things going on that day that was calling for my attention. So my mind was divided. Now, that is a big issue right there. If your mind is divided, if you're trying to think about the thing that you want to manifest, but you've got other thoughts running through your mind and calling for your attention at the same time, the power that you have as a divine being is diffused. It is spread across all of the different ideas that are going through your mind. In order to really get great results from manifesting, it is important to be able to focus all of that energy into one thought. And the more we can do that, the better things work. So those are pretty much the three main reasons why, when I tried to clear up the sky and get things dry for the fire ceremony Friday night, it didn't work. Although there was enough, well, actually at that point, I was looking at the weather on my phone. They were already predicting sunny weather for Saturday. So I take absolutely no credit for Saturday being clear and sunny because that was already going to be there, at least according to the weather reports. So that's when it didn't work. So what can we learn from all this? One of the things that we learn is that if we really want to influence something that seems to be outside of our direct physical control or a direct mental control, our ability to communicate with another person to get a result, I mean, that's a physical thing as far as I'm concerned. But if we're trying to influence something that we have absolutely no connection with whatsoever, whether it's the weather, whether it's another person's behavior, whether it's our heart rate and our blood pressure and our metabolism, if it feels like it's outside of our physical control, there are a couple things that we can do to bring it into our physical control, our maybe not physical control, our metaphysical control. Going above the physical is a great way of controlling the physical. So in order to influence and control the uncontrollable, the first thing that we have to do is believe that it's possible. I remember reading in Hamid Bey's book, My Life Preceding 5,000 Burials, where he's talking about going through his training process, and he's about ready to be tested in controlling his physical body. I think it was about getting pierced with a needle and controlling the blood flow. I think that was the test that he was talking about. And right before then, he didn't feel confident that he was going to be able to succeed with that. His belief in his ability of accomplishing that goal was not as strong as it could be. And he wrote in that book that one of his teachers said, "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it for you. You just go and you do you do what you need to do there, and I will control your blood flow for you. And so Hamid Bey's belief was that, okay, this thing's going to work because the teacher's going to take care of it. Doesn't matter what the reason is, his belief was it was going to work. And it did. And he went through, he had the successful result. The blood flow was controlled. When he was done, he went back to the teacher and said, "Thank you for your help. That really made a difference." And the teacher said, "What help? I did absolutely nothing. You did the whole thing." And so it was a belief that was based on an idea that was not necessarily going to happen. So you could call it a lie. You could call it a little bit of a misdirection, if you will. But his teacher gave him a placebo. And that placebo was enough to change his belief to the point where he could have that successful result. So step number one in manifesting anything, whether you believe it's possible or not, is to make sure that you believe that it's possible. Because if you believe that it's impossible, your lack of belief will prevent it from happening. So believe that it's possible. The second most important thing is to focus your mind on one idea and one idea only. And in the reading that Linda gave tonight, she mentioned something about don't focus on the end result. And I believe that what Hamid Bey was talking about there may have been concentration for a different purpose, because there are different purposes for concentration. And if you are doing the meditation type of concentration, it is good to be open to any result that comes out of that. So I think that's what he was talking about at that time. So what I am saying is that when we are attempting to manifest something on an outer level, we do want to focus on the end result we want. We do want to focus on there not being any rain, or there being sunny skies, or there being a person who's happy to see you instead of upset, whether that is the type of thing that you want to manifest. To focus 100% of your mind on the thing that you want to manifest. And this is something that does take practice. It takes experience. It takes exercise. It's a mental exercise. It's a mental muscle that responds just like physical muscles do. At first, we may be so weak that we have trouble lifting a 5-pound weight. But if we lift a 3-pound weight, and we do that over and over and over again, then we lift a 4-pound weight, and we do that over and over again. Then we lift a 5-pound weight, do that over and over again. Eventually, we get to the point where we're lifting a 25-pound weight or a 50-pound weight. Our muscles respond from the demands that we place upon them by getting stronger. Our minds are the same way. If we put a demand on our mind to focus 100% on one idea for as long as we possibly can, I mean, at first it may be only 3 seconds before you're off chasing squirrels. Maybe only a few seconds at first, few more seconds, a few more seconds, a few more seconds. You just keep going at it over and over and over again, and eventually you get better. And that's the same thing that I did when I was learning roller skating. And I would get up on the skates, I'd go out there, I'd go for it, I'd fall down, I'd get back up, and I'd keep going. And every time I fell down, I picked myself up and I just started all over again. And eventually I got better, and I got better, and I got better, and I got better. And again, just like everything else, when we're focusing, when we're concentrating our minds, when we're learning to control the uncontrollable, the more we practice, the better we get. So belief is important. Focus, concentration is also important. Those of you who have seen my other presentations, who have heard me talk before, these will start to be familiar to you. Faith and focus. These are two of the elements that I talked about in my very first presentation to the Coptics with the harmonic prayer process. Faith, focus, and feeling. Well, that feeling aspect is actually something that I'm now calling imagination. It's the ability to communicate a clear message to the divine mind. And this can sometimes be done in images. It can be done in sound. It can be done in symbols. It can also be done through our emotional feelings. And whatever we're experiencing in that concentrated state, that is the message that gets communicated to the divine mind, and the divine mind manifests it for us. We're not manifesting it. Again, when I first started with this, my initial concept was that, okay, there's electrical impulses firing in my brain in this different pattern called a thought. And somehow this pattern of electrical impulses might be radiating out from me into the physical world. How in the world can something that small, that tiny, that insignificant actually affect the physical world around me, which has its own energy, its own substance and momentum? And that's why in the early days, I had so much trouble manifesting different things. Now I recognize that it's not my thoughts that are doing it at all. It's not my energy that's doing it at all. It's the divine mind. And the divine mind was powerful enough to create all of this. And it can certainly modify little pieces of it here and there. So the third aspect of manifesting is to have a clear concept of what it is that you would like to experience. And when we focus on one clear idea to the exclusion of all else, with this concept and this belief that we're communicating the message to the divine mind and it will manifest, it does. More often than not, especially when you do have that clear idea, that clear vision. And it doesn't even have to be a vision. It doesn't even have to be a sight. It's just the idea of it. There have been times, I remember one time in particular, we were at the end of a Unity service. We're walking out to the car, and there was a picnic planned for the following week. And we're talking about, well, we need to make sure that it's good weather for it. And I'm thinking, okay, good weather. And I didn't even see it at that time. It's just, I thought about it. I had a very clear idea of it. And I had this feeling that everyone who was going to be at that event was happy. And that was really the only idea that I had at that time. And I felt like, okay, it's locked in, it's done. Whether I did it or not, for whatever reason, the next week, we had good weather. So it was good. So I think I pretty much talked about my experiences when I am manifesting. And I am really happy in this scenario where we have the discussion afterwards that I can respond to questions, that we can continue this discussion as we move forward. For those who may want to hear more about the stories, I can send you a link through the chat when I'm done, where you can go get a copy of the video, go watch a copy of the video where I did go through that whole 1 hour presentation on those stories and even more detail into the principles involved, which you guys have already heard if you've seen my other presentations. So with that, I will close out this presentation, or at least put it on pause until we get into this discussion. I thank you for being here, and I hope that I have provided you with some piece of information that will help you continue to practice your manifesting ability so that you can control far more than you ever thought you could. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Much appreciated, and great information. The external noise that is a part of our everyday lives, at the workplace, around family, media, how do you shut it down? And a couple techniques, other than going within and maybe focusing on a candle, as Master Hamid Bey said in some of his teachings. Music, there's probably a couple of them just to get the discussion going. But what are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as far as practicing the concentration and clearing out your mind of those distracting thoughts, focusing on a candle is a traditional thing that a lot of people have talked about. Personally, I like sitting by a campfire and just watching the fire. I can get mesmerized watching the flames dancing around. For me, that's a really good way of just letting go of all of the other thoughts and just being in the moment. And that really is what it's all about. It's about being in the moment and just leaving yourself open to whatever is happening at that time. That's part of where you have to be in order to let those thoughts go and just let them fade away. One of the things that I sometimes talk about is that when you are trying to clear your mind and you are trying to enter into that divine space within, is that if a thought does come through, just ignore it. Just say, okay, yeah, you're there. I'll get to you later. I'm focused on me time right now. And yep, you three thoughts over there. You sit over in the corner right now. I'll get to you when I'm done. And just try to ignore them as best you can. And yeah, they'll be there. And it's kind of like flies buzzing around your head when you're trying to enjoy the outdoor weather. It's like, yeah, they're a nuisance, but you just have to refocus your mind. And it's kind of like weightlifting. It's like you develop your muscles by pushing them to be stronger than what they were. And you give them resistance to work against. And when you are meditating, or at least attempting to meditate, those extra thoughts, they're the resistance that you're working against. And the more you focus on ignoring the distractions, the stronger your mind becomes. If you only take time to meditate when you've eliminated all the distractions, you're not giving your mind anything to work against. You're not giving your mind any opportunity to get stronger. So it's really just a matter of practice. Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. If you're roller skating and you fall down, just get back up and try it again.
John Van Auken says when he started meditating that when these other thoughts would try to intrude, he would take a notepad and just make a little note and say, I'll take care of this later. And he said after he jotted down 2 or 3 different things, then thoughts stopped coming into his head because he had already said, nope, these are being taken care of later. And he didn't have to think about them anymore. And that way he eliminated them.
That can be a good technique, because one of the reasons why our minds continue to bring these thoughts to our attention is because there's an internal worry, a belief of some kind that if I don't do this now, I'm going to forget about it, I'm going to lose track of it, and something bad might happen, or I might lose out on an opportunity one way or the other. And by writing it down, you say, okay, I know that's going to be dealt with. I don't have to try to remember that anymore. The possibility that exists with that is if you start writing down all these different thoughts, you could theoretically, I'm not going to say it will happen because it won't always happen, but theoretically it could happen that you get into the pattern of writing down all these thoughts, and then you just keep going, you just keep going, you just keep going, more thoughts, more thoughts, more thoughts to write down. And the reason I say that is because I have had the experience when I have relaxed to the point of connecting to that divine space within, asking for ideas. And then an idea comes up, I write it down, and then the deeper mind sees that, okay, we give the conscious mind these ideas and they're going to be dealt with. So what other ideas can we feed that conscious mind? And so I get into the pattern of, I start writing down the ideas and I just keep going, I keep going, and keep going. Eventually though, you would kind of run out of ideas to write down. That kind of reminds me of another thing that I did every so often. I called it active meditation. And I had a hard time with the traditional meditation of emptying your mind to completely clear out all thoughts. So I decided to test an experiment of doing the exact opposite. And rather than relaxed, I hyped myself up. And rather than try to ignore everything around me, I was trying to focus on everything around me, every single thing around me. It's like, here's the desk, there's my glass, there's the computer screen, there's a fan over there, there's light over there, there's a camera over there, a microphone here, window over here. Pay attention to everything, all the little nuances of air moving around, the temperature, textures, and I just tried to focus on everything. And what eventually happened was I burned myself out. And when that happened, my mind dropped into that meditative state. So once I got into that meditative state and I could experience it, then getting back to it was a lot easier because I knew what it was and I can just remember what that state felt like. And that helped me get back to it again.
Alan, I wonder what you think about these. There's a lot of videos on YouTube about positive affirmations. There's sleep videos. Some of them are 8 hours long, and a voice in the background is just giving you affirmation after affirmation.
As far as affirmations being played while you're sleeping, there is a lot of evidence that suggests that this can work. It's all about building belief, because those ideas being programmed into your subconscious mind over and over and over again build up a series of memories of these different ideas being expressed, and those memories are what support our beliefs. And so that type of process can help build a belief, and that is one of the primary components of manifesting, is to have the belief that it can happen, and even better is the belief that it will happen. And in fact, that's one of the things that I've mentioned every so often in these presentations. If you have the belief that something's going to happen, you don't really need to worry about the focus, the concentration, and all that other stuff, because your beliefs will create your experiences. As Christ kept saying, according to your faith, this is done unto you. Your beliefs are reflected in the world around you. And the only time we need to worry about or think about concentrating and changing our beliefs to manifest something is when the belief does not yet support the outcome we want. So the concentration and all that is just a change of belief. And what you're talking about is another process that can change the belief. So it both works for the same outcome.
Thank you.
I have to tell you guys a story about his ability. We had the great opportunity to go to England for 2 weeks. It was specifically a Beatlemaniacs tour. So we went to London and saw a bunch of places, and then we were going to go to Liverpool. When we were in London, people were talking about, oh, the week we're supposed to be in Liverpool, it's going to rain every day, and that's typical for Liverpool, and it's cold, and we knew that we had a lot of outdoor walking to do. And Alan and I were talking, he says, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. So, I believed him because I've seen him do this. We got to Liverpool, and for the 4 days we were there, it was sunny and warm. And the people who lived there kept commenting, oh, this is just such unusual weather. For us, this is not normal the whole time. And so every place we needed to go and walk, we had warm, comfortable, sunny weather to walk to. And I was just kind of chuckling inside because, he made Liverpool weather what it normally isn't for the 4 days we were there. So that
you should have had a T-shirt. He did it.
No, he's very secretive and humble about that.
Yeah,
he doesn't go around and say, oh, I did this,
No. Right.
Between him and I was chuckling, particularly when the natives, the people we were encountering were saying, this is such unusual weather for Liverpool.
Yeah, the guy at the Cavern Club, he definitely made a big comment. He said, don't let the present weather fool you. This is not a tropical climate.
We may need you to work in California soon, Alan.
That's another situation where I've not had as much success, and that is to influence weather in a place other than where I'm at.
Where you're at.
And there's another story that goes with that too, as far as in 2012, a friend of mine who lives in California invited me to present at a workshop that he was doing in Kauai. And so he called me a couple months ahead and asked if I'd be willing to do that with him. And I said, trip to the Hawaiian Islands? Yeah, I'll do that. So we get out there, we do our thing. It didn't work out quite the way we had hoped it would, but it was still a very nice experience. And at the end, he said, you know what? California has been having a drought. I mean, they seem to have them quite often, but he was talking about the one in 2012, that year. And I said, you know what? I'll see what I can do. And so on the plane ride back home, and after we got back home, I'm thinking, send rain to California, send rain to California, send rain to California. And at that time, I was visualizing a map. And I was, well, not really a map, but I was visualizing the earth from the sky. And I was visualizing sending the rain to California. Well, in a week or two, we heard that there was a lot of rain, but not in California. It was in Hawaii. They were getting flooded. And it's like, whoops, I missed. But I think the reason for that is because I had a connection to the Hawaii area because we were just there. I didn't have as much of a connection to California. And that was not a place that I could visualize myself being in. And with most of this weather thing, I'm in the middle of it and I'm experiencing it from the inside. What I was doing at that time was I was outside of it trying to send it somewhere else. And so that may have been a factor in how I was visualizing things, whether it worked or whether it didn't work. So that's another case where it didn't quite work out the way I had hoped.
Probably a total different skill that you would have to learn to, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. If it is, right. Possible. You make me wonder if I influenced the weather when my son's family was here. July 1 through 4, we had the most perfect weather that we have had during the summer. And I had been anticipating my son's family being here that week, and we were going to go to Fort Ancient and hike outside. And we had it's almost a 2-hour drive to get there. And then we were going to be in the backyard of the B&B where they were staying to entertain because of the COVID, and some of the children weren't vaccinated. We wanted to be able to be out of doors, and everything, those 4 days could not have been more beautiful, more perfect. In fact, we almost wished that we had brought jackets with us when we went to Fort Ancient because the breeze came up a little bit during part of our outside time. And it was like, I could not have asked for a nicer temperature. And I'd been thinking about their coming for a month and focusing on all these wonderful things we were going to do together. And so they left on the 5th, and we got rain the day they left. And then it got hot and humid. But those 4 days, 70 degrees, no rain. It was gorgeous. So is it possible that I manifested that?
It's very possible. Yes, it's very possible. We have far more power than what any of us ever realize. It's just incredible what is within our capability. That's why the talk was Control the Uncontrollable, because the things that we think are uncontrollable actually can be. I mean, it's a matter of what is our belief in the situation and what is our skill level in focusing our minds and changing our beliefs to make it happen.
Yeah, I've heard that our thoughts are prayers, whether we're consciously praying or unconsciously praying, we are creating.
Yep. We're creating all the time, whether we know it or not.
Whether we're doing it intentionally or not. Yeah.
Yep. So I saw that John had went to go grab a book.
I several months ago, a good friend of mine, Jim Campbell, sent me a book. Sent his friends a book. Title of the book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. unlock your master key to success. So since that time, before I start to meditate, I make a statement. All nations have the greatest economy ever. All nations promote peace on earth. I touch into the conscious, the subconscious, and superconscious to bring this into divine reality. And I believe, they say it all the time, and I always emulate, I believe, I believe, I believe. Every day, every day, every day I say any day. And I believe that we have the power to do this, because Nancy and I read parts of the book every day, and it has been life-changing. And I recommend that you just make this statement. All nations have the greatest economy ever. All nations promote peace on earth. I believe, I believe, I believe. If you believe, it will become an active manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I have to. So I'm in love with this book. And just what do you want to have happen on earth? We have the power to create. We are world servers. That's what the Coptics stand for. We have a part of the organization called the World Service Order. So what we're doing is we're serving the world to serve all nations. All nations will feel the way we do because we're forerunners. We're the ones that go out and emulate it. It's like we're farmers. We're mental farmers, and we plant the seeds. And those seeds grow. So that's what I have to share. I want to again thank Alan.
Just think of the power of the mass meditations then, and the power, and if everybody prayed for rain for California, not floods, but rain to get rid of the fires and the droughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And praying for world peace. Yeah. Praying that our country work together with love and unity and actual interest in serving the country, not serving the people. Anyway.
Yeah, that idea of world peace, that's one of those ideas that, at least for myself, for a lot of years, I kept thinking that, that would be an absolute wonderful thing. There's no way that I could actually influence anything to make that come about. That would be the uncontrollable for me. And early last year, and I'm not necessarily going to take credit or blame or anything for what I did, but one of the things that I chose to do was to entertain the idea that maybe I could influence the world peace situation. And I had visualized the planet Earth in the palm of my hand, because one of the other things that I've found in manifesting is that it's about perspective. And if you see the problem or the thing that you're trying to influence is bigger than you, and you're just this tiny little insect in comparison to it, you're not going to have any real success at it. But if you see yourself as the 800-pound gorilla or the elephant, and the problem is this little mouse kind of thing. So I was visualizing the planet Earth, and I was visualizing sending energy throughout this entire sphere, loving, positive, generous, giving, cooperative energy into the whole human race. And that was the thing that I was focusing on. And I remember one of the early Zoom meetings that we had for the Thursday night with Hamid Bey thing, that idea came up, and it's like everybody who was attending felt like they had some contribution to creating the pandemic. And what I was seeing is that, okay, I'm doing this thing. I'm obviously not the only one doing this. So it is a group effort. But maybe the pandemic was one of those steps that needed to happen to reach that goal. And I'm still hoping that that's the way it's going to come about. So I hope, I trust, let me put it this way. I choose to believe that we are on that pathway leading to that result.
I agree. Thank you.
Believe.
Yes. I have to tell you, I don't know what it is, but I have this feeling of energy just radiating as you spoke. It's just like, I don't know, it's a different feeling. It's like, I feel like there's some kind of a power that is emanating right at this moment, not just from me, but I think from all of us. I think the connection of the group gathered is pouring something extra spiritual and extra special.
Sounds good. Thank you.